and welcome to Traditional Painting the Digital Way. This is where I use digital painting apps to teach traditional painting techniques. In this video, we're going to be starting a new series, and we're going to be doing a waterfall with a rainbow. Rainbows are sort of tricky subjects because you want to make them look sort of transparent. So in this video, I'm going to show you how to start with the background and put in the trees. If you want to follow along with traditional materials, here are the brushes that I use, and I will probably use acrylic paint for this type of a painting. I use canvas board or wrapped canvas for painting on. I like to use gallery wrapped canvas because you don't have to frame those canvases. You can just paint around on the edges and then just put a hanger on it, and you don't have to worry about putting a frame on it. Here are the paints that I like to use, and I usually use Grumbacher Academy acrylics and Liquitex, and the color names are going to vary from brand to brand. And you can also use Utrecht brand paint. There are some really nice acrylic paints out there, so just whatever you prefer. The app that we're going to be using is Infinite Painter for Android, and here I'm just making a little bit of a sketch of how I want my painting to look. And I've gotten a whole bunch of different photo references from Pixabay. And Pixabay is a site where you can get royalty-free photos and use them for your photo references or however you would like. And here I'm just going to show you kind of how I take bits and pieces from different photographs and just build my own composition. And so I'm using the sketching pencil from Infinite Painter, and you can use a piece of vine charcoal if you're following along traditionally, or you can use a really light pencil. And so I want to go ahead and start with the sky, and I want it to be kind of a purplish, misty looking sky. And if you're following along with your acrylics, you would use dioxazine purple and throw in a little bit of burnt sienna and put a lot of white acrylic gesso and just kind of make a light grayish purple look. And I'm using the, I like to use the Leo brush for this, but you can use the flat oil brush, and you can sort of blend it in with one of the paint brushes there, but it doesn't matter if you leave a few strokes there because we're making this a misty looking sky, and it's going to have clouds and mist in the background, so it won't hurt if you leave some of the brush strokes showing. And then I want to go ahead and add in the background mountains here, and you just want to add some sort of rough looking mountains. Just make the edges sort of rough looking, and you can take your purple mixture with burnt sienna and add a little bit more dioxazine purple, maybe a little bit of ultramarine blue if you're following along with your acrylics. You just want kind of a darker look. And you can use the Leo brush or the flat oil brush for this if you're following along in Infinite Painter. And it doesn't matter if you leave some painterly looking strokes on the mountain too, because again, it's going to be all misty and sort of wet looking in the background. And then I want to start on the first layer of trees, and we want to make those look sort of faded into the background. So you would use kind of a faded green color. And if you're following along with your acrylics, you would mix Hooker's green with dioxazine purple and add a lot of white acrylic gesso. And this will just give you kind of a faded looking green in the background. And you want to make jagged looking trees and sort of make the point on them and then go ahead and make a zigzag shape sort of down the trees. You just want indications of the pine trees. You don't want any big details at this point because they're going to be in the background. And for the trees, I like to use the paint stroke brush in Infinite Painter because it's sort of uneven and jagged looking. And then you want to go ahead and sort of cover up your background with a little bit of a fine mist. and you would just take some white acrylic gesso and thin it down with lots of water, and just take a real thin glaze and run it over the top of the trees and your mountains. Don't cover them completely up, and make sure that the glaze is very thin. And if you're doing this in Infinite Painter, just make sure it's on a separate layer, and make sure that your opacity is turned down. And I like to use the cloudy brush in the spray paint category. And then I want to go ahead and add some more trees in front of this mist, and we're going to be using sort of the same technique that we did to do the background ones. And you just kind of make a point on the top of the trees and then make sort of a zigzag shape. And I want to make these kind of a little bit more brighter green, but as you can see, I actually sort of changed the color because I thought this was a little too bright. But if you're following along with your acrylics, you would take Hooker's green and dioxazine purple and throw in some more white acrylic gesso, but not as much as what you've used in the background. And then here I just wanted to throw in a little bit of some underbrush under these trees, and you would use a lighter green, maybe phthalo yellow green, if you're following along traditionally. And then I went ahead and kind of made it a little bit of a darker green on the trees. I went back over them again. And if you're following along traditionally, you can use your number 3 round brush, and again, make the point and make the zigzags down the point of the brush of the trees there. And I like to use the paintbrush for this in Infinite Painter, the paint stroke brush. I can't seem to remember the name of it, but it's called Paint Stroke. And then I wanted to go ahead and add the rocks, and you want to make just real uneven strokes for the first rocks. You don't care about making them refined. You just kind of want to put some uneven strokes and just figure out where you want to put these rocks. And you could use a grayish color, so you can use ultramarine blue, maybe a little bit of dioxazine purple and burnt sienna with some white mixed in it if you're following along traditionally with your acrylics. You just want kind of a dark grayish color for your rocks. Not totally black, but just kind of a dark gray. And then I wanted to go ahead and add the first layer of water. And so I'm underpainting it with a ultramarine blue sort of color. And you can use a dry brush for this technique, and it's just going to be the first layer, so we're not too worried about how it looks. So this is the end of part 1 of my Rainbow Fall series, and in part 2 we're going to work more on the trees and the rocks and the water. So if you're interested in seeing part 2, hit the subscribe button, and thanks everybody for watching. Thank you so much for your support. If you have any questions, just leave them in the comments down below, and I will catch you later.